then we'd manually balance the cells, then it would be okay. But then as we cycle it more and more, suddenly you go out of balance and you get down in its capacity again. So something was not working with the circuitry, and I wish I had that video that Jeff took, where we had it plugged into the battery, and then we had all of our instruments to see, we deliberately discharge the cell so it's lower, and then we kind of measure how much current, if that cell is being fed extra current, if we have an overcharged cell, is it bleeding, and can we see which LEDs go on as far as linked to a particular cell. And these LEDs are just dancing randomly.
I wave my hand.
And then as you move, like when you have a radio and then it's fuzzy and you go to approach it and then it becomes clear and then you back off and it's staticky. So like the LED flash pattern was exactly like that. So as you like bring in your proximity, you can maybe get all excited and then you stand back and
Video theremin.
Yeah, good kind of. Only that's not what we wanted. So this is the real news. We had a huge stock of these batteries that we needed to replace the battery management circuit on before we could sell them. And a lot of customers were like, yes, in the back?
I was just wondering, you only really need the battery management system when you're charging or discharging it. Couldn't you just like have it turn off the battery management system?
Yeah, except that the battery management system has wires to each individual cell, and those are also the wires that power it. So you need like an 11-position switch to turn. It depends on the particular circuit, but you're right that you could have one with this little switch, and then you just flip it off when you're storing the battery and it would run nothing, and then you flip it on when you want to use it. And that was one of the things that we had discussed, or one of the proposals we were trying to suggest. But the particular way their circuit works, if any one of these cells was connected, it would start to draw current. So you have to switch all 11 connectors on and off, unless they redid design how their circuit was done. Anyway, so we had these batteries for a long time. We're trying to sort of a replacement management circuit solution. It took us, I think, 6 to 8 months before we were finally able to get those circuits and have a claim that they would ship it to us as warranty and that they would admit that there was a fault with the ones that came with it. And the improvement was remarkable. So here's a battery pack where this is with the LED battery management circuit. We discharged it, and after 7.5 hours, it was flat. We replaced it with the switch capacitor type, and then we put it on our test station, just let it cycle for, I think, 4 or 5 days. And when at the end of the charge cycle, we let it sit fully charged for a long time, because that's when balancing happens most efficiently with lithium iron phosphate. And you can see what happened. The second discharge cycle, we got another amp hour, another 0.8 amp hours, 0.5 amp hours. And soon enough, by the time we cycled it 8 times, the battery was giving 11.5 amp hours, showed no signs of just one cell causing the tie-up, but all the cells behaving in unison. And then we thought, oh, thank goodness. Now all we have to do is open up all these batteries, redo the BMS wiring, reseal them, retest them, and now you can sell them to the customers. So we started that process only to find that even after we had batteries that tested out fine on our test station, when we supplied to the customers, sometimes they would come back within 3 months and say, hey guys, I'm not totally sure what's going on, but I'm only getting like 8 amp hours out of my battery now, and I know you did a lot of work getting a better BMS circuit and tested before you sent it. So we would get them shipped back to us, and sure enough, when we discharged it, we find one cell that had lower capacity than the rest of the cells. It was only giving 8 amp hours. It wasn't just that it wasn't balanced, but that cell had, for whatever reason, started to deteriorate drastically in its performance. And this photo here shows about 1/10 of the number of cells that we ultimately have sitting in our warehouse right now that we took out of QC problem battery packs and replaced with good cells. And then while this was happening, then we were like, oh crap, so we had a bunch of cells just sitting on our own shelves, and those were allowed to self-discharge. So then we had a lot of batteries that we thought we could harvest for spare cells, but because we hadn't been mindful to unplug the battery management circuit, by the time we went to use those batteries to fix these batteries coming back to us from customers, all the cells were at 0 volts to begin with, because we had let them self-drain. Some of this was related, like this is the, you can see all the corrosion on the copper contact, and here the customer had it upside down in their bag. And these cells have a little cap on here, and you can unscrew that cap and then like see the electrolyte squish around. And when it's upside down, that's clearly leaking out and then allowing the escape of electrolyte, and that would explain why some people were getting much reduced light out of them. Meanwhile, other people were still getting great usage. So it was, again, one of those statistical things where we couldn't consistently say that all these batteries were crap or that all of them were good. Probably 50% of them that went out ended up having to come back to us for service and repair work or just outright replacement. And yeah, that was quite a fiasco in the day. So one of our hopes is that these companies that are doing cylindrical iron phosphate batteries be more reliable, because that's a completely sealed cell. And when you have a rectangular prismatic cell, they usually fold the electrolyte or the electrodes back and forth, so you have these sharp creases. Whereas in a cylindrical cell, it's just a nice, smooth, uniform coil. So there's less room for mechanical issues to creep in, and it can also handle pressure better. When you have these cylindrical cells like this here, if they start to get overcharge over discharge a bit or get hot and the pressure builds up, well, there's nothing to prevent the cells from just expanding this way. So we'd see these batteries that come back to us under this enormous strain and pressure, and the moment you release the strapping to hold it, they just open up and relieve themselves a little. But when you have the electrodes expanding and shrinking mechanically, you're exposing the insides of the cells to physically moving and possibly getting through the little separator plate between the electrodes. We don't want things mechanically moving inside the cell, and a prismatic cell, rectangular like this, is a lot more vulnerable to that. So one of the companies that we were dealing with the NiCad packs, we were mostly happy with, except for those cells blowing up in a moment, was now offering lithium iron phosphate in the exact same form factor, which is exciting for us, because then we could fit it in a triangular shape and have it go in the frame of the bike, which is a really handy location for a conversion kit battery. And anyway, at the end of the date, we had about 40 of those batteries, and basically 20 of them came back to us with problems of both the battery management circuit and cells that just internal storage. So